Month, yeah. All right. The mission statement for the Lake Mills Area School District is preparing all of today's students for tomorrow's opportunities. Has the meeting been properly posted?
Yes, it was posted on the LMASD website and at the Lake Mills Post Office and submitted to the Lake Mills Leader.
Okay, with that, I will call the meeting to order. Please, all those who are able, please stand and rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I will request a roll call for attendance.
Brianna Beslick. Here. Ken Eimers.
Here.
Andrea Graham. Kirk Lund.
Here.
Amy Litcher.
Here. Are there any revisions to the agenda?
I'll move the board approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Okay, we can vote by voice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Okay, it passes. Moving on to board reports.
Okay. We did receive a very nice thank you card, the board, from the family of Roger Munt, the father of Dwayne Munt, our custodian. And it reads, thank you for the beautiful floral arrangement. That was so nice of you to think of us at this most difficult time. Thank you for being so good to Dwayne. He is truly a blessing to me. And that is from Judy Munt, the wife of Roger, and the Roger Munt family.
Okay. And if that's everything, we will move on to the Collaborative Advisory Team report.
Yes, I'm very thankful for Becca Stein and Ryan Grady, who volunteered to present an overview of all of the work that the Collaborative Advisory Team did for the past 14 months. And then they will also present a recommendation to the board tonight as a summary of their work for further facilities development. So with that, I'm going to let them take it away.
You can go to the next slide. So the agenda for this today will just be to go over the background and the processes, and then also look at the challenges, the options that we considered, and then the community survey summary, and then went into the CAT recommendation. So with that, that's just the overview. The first part is all about the background and processes, and we're going to do a high leverage, high overview of what happened. Next slide. So you can see here that there were 42 members, and those were taken. Anyone could have volunteered, making sure that we had an all-call. It took about 14 months, 10 meetings, 3 tours, and a lot of hours here to discuss, to see what was in the best interest from the CAT to the next steps with our facilities. Here is the committee serves as an advisory capacity, in no way that we are making any decisions, just the recommendations to the board today. And so that's what this slide is about, and it's really about what we can do for the fiscal solutions and the demands that our schools are having here in Lake Mills in order for us to have some long-range facility committee planning done.
And Becca, I'm just going to clarify, just for the people watching as well, that that link represents all of the work that's on the website. So if anybody wants to go back and watch any of the videos, see any of the slideshows from the meetings, any of any documents that were supplied, it is all on the website.
Thank you. Next slide. This is just a pictorial kind of representation of what has been done, and you can see from May of 2023 all the way to where we are today. That CAT team, we met, we created some agendas, kind of our scope of our work, and also what was our norms to work together or agreements. We did some perception survey or some surveys out there, and then we came back together to discuss what would be our recommendation that brings us to you today. The next two slides really talk about or show you that we really wanted to be in line and in vision with the Lake Mill School District strategic planning. We wanted to make sure that this all was about all stakeholders, and we didn't just look at one building or one need or one area of, that needed support and concern to be addressed, but rather we looked at all students first and then kind of planned by that way. There's a whole list of all the beliefs in the facility decision-making that we considered, and you can see it starts with that equitable access for all stakeholders. Same thing here. This is kind of the checklist of what we were able to do and achieve. You can see on both of these what was the charge, again, aligning to what's the mission, vision of our district, and then how does it align to also what was the needs that were being presented after the last referendum had failed within our district. So this is our 42 member. I'm not going to read everyone's name, but everyone in there had a chance to have a voice, and whether that was, vocally at the meetings if you go back and watch, or some of the things that you will see there, but also in different ways that we took surveys and having input, whether it was private, for those that maybe weren't as vocal as well. There was opportunity to ask questions, and really this is a very diverse group, which was really nice to see that people from different areas of our community coming together, whether they were parents or community members that don't have children in district today. There was just a nice variety. Next slide. So you can see that the 30 members on an average attended each meeting. There was a mix of various ages, like I was speaking to, business owners, different leaders in our community, and then they were filled with meaningful discussion and fruitful debate, and we also had some good lunches or dinners too. Just knowing that last one as well, it was really important to know that the board in no way influenced. They were there as listening, and the same with the administration. They were there to help guide the conversation, answer questions, but they did not work in a manner that was, they were part of the decision-making and the recommendation today. So this was what we went over. The information reviewed was the history of the school facilities. Lake Mills has been very supported as a community and district within our schools. We did some building tours. We also had, we talked about what does it, in the different areas of what is early learning and why is that important to our district, not only financially, but for the support of our children. Special education, we talked about music, athletics, and physical ed. Also about what do those needs look like when we're looking to really foster students that are well-rounded. We talked about the recreation department and asked questions and answered them there. We also did some facility study findings, and we got in the weeds down into that to look at what was being recommended and what was something that would be a high priority compared to something that would not be. And then we did the enrollment study, and then we also looked at school finances. So that was a big overview of kind of the work that happened over the last year.
All right. So what we did was we took in that early stages through all those tours and conversations with staff and administration, we identified some really important areas that maybe need some revitalization. And so if you can see on the left, those are all the different areas that we considered and then voted on. And after some careful consideration, we identified some high needs, such as the capital maintenance items in the area, changing the bus barn, a 4K early learning classroom space, high school cafeteria, maybe doing some revitalization there, and then lack of ADA parking at the high school. So if you can go to the next slide. At the elementary school, we explored some options such as accommodating early learners, like I said, early learning, early childhood and 4K, taking a look at some space considerations. They're pretty tight over there at the elementary school, and it kind of limits the kind of opportunities that they can do there with students. So looking at that space concern, and then the special needs and thinking about space for that demographic, and then also some slight capital improvements, noting that that school is pretty young. At the middle school, looking at some improvements to the main office so that they can have better flow with the administration team and looking at the nurse situation and things like that. We have the library, having more of a STEM space there and investing in that. looking at some minor site improvements, especially outdoors. They have 2 playgrounds that can make it kind of an administrative concern. So thinking about how we could make that sure. This is all part of the conversation that we had during these year. And then also for security reasons, looking at some of the items there at that school. At the high school, the big kind of thing that always stuck out was the special education space and the basement, and how to make that more inspired. Looking at the music spaces and trying to make that part of the school something that this community can continue to be proud of. Looking at the expansion of the cafeteria, right now the music space and the cafeteria have to share, and it can be kind of challenging as people transition. The lower gym, there are concerns. It's just not a great space, especially as we bring in wrestling competitions and things like that. So trying to look at how can we, I guess, have a space that's a little bit more, that brings more pride. The security has always been a challenge, both at the middle school and high school, thinking about how we can improve that. We have the baseball field that's currently at the middle school and pretty dilapidated, thinking about what can we do to revitalize that. All of these points we had to cover at length and vote on. And so we went ahead and got some final options. And we had to, after talking about and really trying to strike a majority vote, I think was what we did at the end, was what's going to get the most traction. We removed some medium and low. If you looked at that initial slide that I talked to, the medium and low, we removed the capital maintenance needs that were scored as such. At the elementary school, we had to consider what kind of 4K option we were going to have, if at all. There was a 2-room option, a 4-room option. We eliminated the 2-room option. We also thought about where could it be placed, and we voted on that. And we had a special spot kind of within the same school structure that we could add on to. There was a talk about having it across the street, and that was voted against. At the middle school, site improvements, we talked about, could we potentially relocate that baseball stadium to the high school, or should we just improve it? And we had to have that conversation. And then at the high school, we had a conversation about the upper gym to the cafeteria, and it was actually going to be a very extensive project that got voted against. So we came up with this $51.2 million base plan. And most of that came from that high priority needs that was voted on again. So this base plan includes a high school renovation to the main entrance, special education classrooms. There is like this unused locker room space that needs to get desperately improved. Improvements to the cafeteria, the kitchen, auditorium, improving that space. So again, it can be a space that can bring this community a lot of pride and add to the really cool things that they're doing there. Potential demolition of that lower gymnasium and replacing it with a larger one. How do we, put all this into this $51.2 million plan? And then with the middle school, library, office space, playground space, site improvements there. Elementary, again, we talked about that 4 classroom for that early learning 4K plan. So here you go. This is the base plan that we came up with. And again, it all came from a majority vote within that group. At the high school, expanding classrooms. I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself, so I'm going to let y'all read this because I've already still said this again. The big thing that I guess we could talk to is relocating that bus barn. We try to create more parking space, and also it's kind of a safety concern at the high school. That is one item that I didn't talk to, finding a place that we can put that's special on school property, or buying space so we can build more parking in that space. Everything else I talked to. You can flip this. You can go to the next slide. At the elementary school, I already talked to this. You can see where we voted on where that 4 classroom addition will be placed. We did that so it would be part of the school. It could add to the flow. It wasn't a security concern. There's a lot of items that we discussed during these meetings. You can go to the next slide. At the middle school, the renovations, we talked about some flex space for nurse privacy, library improvements. We talked about that STEM, adding to that STEM curriculum there. And then we're going to have another one, I think. If we can go to the next slide. At the middle school, again, the outdoor was a big part of what we discussed, and removing the failing tennis courts, consolidating the playgrounds so it could allow for teachers to monitor students more easily, improving that baseball field stadium. Also part of that. So there was these other additional projects that we brought to the survey because we weren't quite sure. They were right at the cusp. They weren't quite a majority. We didn't think it made sense to add it to the base plan, and so we had people look at it separately, and that was expanding the music area and kitchen cafeteria was a major expansion, and then outdoor athletics, and that would be moving the baseball stadium from the middle school to the high school. And again, we brought that to this community.
So after the discussion around the high priority and the safety capital projects, maintenance needs that were needed by the district, we were able to put together the survey, and then that was disseminated amongst the community. And you can see here that we had an above average response rate, which was 25%. There were over 1,000 staff and community members completed the survey, and those staff members, it's really important to clarify, are staff members who are voting members within our community. So just a clarity there too. You can see that overall that almost 80% of our respondents feel that Lake Mills is doing a great job with a high quality education, something to be very proud of. And then you can see 60% are looking at residents support pursuing a referendum. And then the residents who would support the base plan was about that 60%, 59%. And when you weight everything up based on who are the people taking the survey, whether it's a staff member who is in the community, whether it's a community member who has a student or a child within Lake Mills, or if it's, and also community members who don't have children, we still have a 51.5% supporting the base plan. So the survey results kind of got broken down like this. You can see here that the capital referendum was to address the facility needs. These are the residents. 60% said yes, 28% said no, and you can see 12% weren't sure. So we got to drill down into that a little further, and you can see that when it came to staff that supported going to a referendum was staff who live in the district who support the referendum was 87%, compared to parents who support it was 67 said yes, and then community non-having students within the school district were 47%. So you can see how that looks within those residents' population. There's a weighted analysis that goes on based on what is the percent of people voting, which is 25% really makes up those parents, and less than 1% is the staff. And then 75 of that majority is coming from non-parents, non-staff. So when we weight that, that's how we're able to find that it was 51.5% still supported, having a definite yes or a probably yes in the referendum if it would be moved forward as the base plan. The question comes up always, like, why doesn't a referendum pass, or why don't we have that happen? What's the no? There were truly 3 top reasons that the no was, or probably no, considered. One was it's too expensive and the tax impact. That was the largest to the people saying, no, I don't support this, at 78%. And then the other 2 were closely matched. Was one about not supporting the addition or the removal of the lower gym and the relocation of that that bus barn. And then at 52% is the middle school office. So those were all close in proximity of that percent to the why no, but again, having too expensive tax impact was the largest. And then it's broken again down by who said what. And you can see the too expensive tax impact that was too large. When we look at staff who vote within our community was 55%, the parents were 70%, and then 84% were the non-parents, non-staff. So you can see where that lies. It's important to know on this slide that when we're looking at later the makeup, we will really target what our recommendation as the CAT team went through is that in that third one, the middle school office at 52%, when you start looking at cost relationship to the overall package of this possible referendum, it's only about $100,000. So that impact isn't as great, so it doesn't get tackled later. So some people would ask maybe later, why didn't the top three get mentioned or be clarified? It's because one doesn't have a bigger impact within the referendum money that we're suggesting. So what do we learn from the survey results? Lots of questions, more answers. Of yes, that the projects tested, only the base plan had the majority, which was that 51.5 weighted support. If a referendum for the base plan were held today, the outcome is really close. So we can honor that and recognize that too. And then the next steps was us to come together as a CAT team and decide what we were going to do. In general, even though the support is there as a CAT team, what did the majority want to do with this information to move forward? And that gets us to the next slide. So the facilities recommendation that was placed amongst the CAT, again, like Ryan said, it was the majority. We had we looked at the survey feedback. We had question and answers again that were clarified with everyone, the experts in the room. We took some anonymous polls again, and then we decided on what we would look to is separating the base plan and the new gym, and the totals are there. So if you go to the next one. Here are just a couple of the votes that we were doing, and you can see what the data gives us for what we were discussing. Is the first question was, do you recommend that the district continue to pursue a capital referendum to address the needs? That was just, do you support going forward with a referendum as CAT members? And you can see there were 20 that said yes and 5 that said no. However, when we got down into can you go back one slide, please? So then you could see no, why did you not vote no was on there. And then the other piece of this was where we got into, do we separate a question or not? Would that be our recommendation to you? We know that the board makes this final decision. This is just a recommendation. So then we drilled down a little further and found out that most people within the CAT team that was there would say that we should separate the question. That's what was our recommendation. Regarding the gym being added into the base plan and having that second one. So that's what this is. Our recommendation is that we would recommend on behalf of the CAT team with the majority to proceed with a capital referendum to address the needs and to consider the two questions separated. One, have the base plan that would exclude the new gym and the remodel of that with the bus barn. And then the second question in a way that would allow for that to be tackled in addition to. And then our last recommendation is that there's just factual information and that, like typical, communication is broadly to the community. So that's on behalf of the CAT from Ryan and myself. If there's other questions, I think Dr. Olson or anyone else could probably answer them as well.
I think you did a great job summarizing over a year's worth of work. I applaud you for that.
Yeah, it was a very nice presentation. I know you put it together in a fairly short period of time too, so really appreciate that. Was interested in your perceptions on what you thought was the more accepted or positive type of changes overall in the base plan. Did anything stick out for you in terms of as you were putting this together, I guess?
When we were talking as a CAT team in the past, we got to see the survey kind of open comments and just generalities or themes that occurred. One of the things that didn't surprise me, and I would say just speaking on behalf of myself, is
Security and safety piece of it, because I think, personally, it's always better to be proactive in safety and security than reactive, especially after we, witnessed a close neighbor and what they dealt with not too long ago. So I did appreciate hearing some of that. So I look forward to whatever's decided, and like you said, providing that educational knowledge to our community members, because I think there are a lot of people who didn't get to experience this. So if you're looking something to do on these really hot days, you can binge watch our meetings, and that'll get you through the hot weather and air-conditioned building, hopefully.
Some riveting stuff there. I was going to say, too, we did our best to create a compromise that we felt would drive the community to an overwhelming yes. I felt like if we would have just done one vote, it would have been a coin flip. And maybe if more education happened, maybe it could have been something more than that. But I feel like the way it's broken down allows the community to have an overwhelming yes.
Yeah, we appreciate, taking a consensus building approach, and I think that made a lot of sense. So thanks for going the extra mile to put something together that you feel will have, solid support to pass. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, we will move on to administrative reports and for the multi-language learner department.
Hi, everyone. This might be the most stressful part of my job. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's a great board. All right, so thank you for having us again this year to go through our year in review for the Multilingual Learner Program. I'll be doing an overview for you, and then Megan Collins will be talking about the elementary data. I'll be talking about the middle and high school data, and then Erin will go through a grant that we received this year. I brought in Julia this year to talk about how she supports students in the magical way that she does it, and then I'd like to just inform you a little bit about the ELD standards. So you know our team. I'm Jessica Noche, so I'm the coordinator. I've also added to my title the District Bilingual Family Liaison. That is what I do. It just wasn't on there before. And the reason I added that is 10% of our population are Hispanic. So there are several students that I support outside of my ML role, just in resources and navigating the system. And then lastly, I am the ML teacher for grades 5 through 12 currently. Megan Collins is with us, like I mentioned. She's the ML teacher for grades 5K through 4. And then Julia Dami, she's the district translator, so anything written from any teacher anywhere in the district, as well as the district office. And then she's also our paraprofessional working directly with students in 5K through 12. Overall, our population demographics, we have 6% of our students at the elementary school and then 3% respectively at the middle and high school. We're still sitting on around a 4% population in our ML students, and as I mentioned, that 10% of entire Hispanic students, many who have been in the program in the past. All right, I'll let Megan take over. I have these if you want.
Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Collins, as Jessica said. This is my second year in the role as a multilingual teacher for the elementary school. And with that, I wanted to take a minute to just highlight some of the little things that have made a big difference in our building. Starting with 4K, Mrs. BQ and Mrs. Hands, through collaboration, we worked on bringing in songs in Spanish and in English in the classroom. I loved being in Mrs. Taylor's room this year as she and all the other students learned to count in Romanian. In second grade, Mrs. Staffaker counts in Spanish during number corner and then highlights all the cultures in our entire building through highlighting their flags and their heritage. Mrs. Scott and Mrs. Myers at third grade and middle school Spanish classes worked together to communicate their families in first language by texting them in their first language. They also started a buddy program where the two grade levels, third grade and seventh grade, come together and speak in their first languages. Mr. Zeski, our fourth grade teacher, he worked on learning Spanish to display his morning message in both English and Spanish so that he could reach two newcomers in the classroom. I do want to take a little bit of extra time to highlight our PTO, our paraeducators, and our administrators in the building as well. As you can see, through tons of collaboration this year, all PTO events, flyers have been translated into Spanish and other languages that are needed. Our paraeducators took time and got some training from me on how to use Google Translate on their phones, on their computers, on their Chromebooks. Our administrators participated in a book club on youth and immigration. And so all of these things, we've worked together to really build up the capacity for our multilingual learners and their families.
At all the schools, so she had a 96% growth in writing, and that is the heaviest weighted area in the exam, so that's really significant. Next slide. So at the middle school, we exited one. We only had 9 kids because you remember last year we did a really great job at exiting students. We technically could have exited 2 students at the middle school. There is a caveat in the programming where if a student scores within a range, they can stay in the program if we think that's necessary. And we did make that decision as a team. So we had an overall growth of 71%, which was pretty significant there as well. You do remember there was a deficit growth, or deficit 2 years ago. And then lastly, at the high school, unfortunately, we didn't have any of those students exit this year, and we saw a decline of 58%. So we're talking about a similar situation to what we had at the middle school a couple years ago. And a lot of this has to do with programming across the board. So we've really done a great job through the help of you all hiring another ML teacher and building capacity at the elementary school, and then all of our work last year at the middle school, really getting teachers on board and doing all that great work. And although I was at the high school the last 2 years, I would say that the program isn't super structured there yet. So for example, I have a guided study hall every other day where I meet with my multilingual learner students. Julia's up there working with newcomers, and then we had the help of the Spanish teacher. The way that I'm shifting, and Erin and I have had several conversations about this, the way that I'm shifting the program this year is I'll be moving my office to the high school and building the same program model we have at the middle and elementary. So we're looking at collaborative teaching in the classroom with the students, helping create capacity for the teachers. So we're going to see this number shift. Next slide. I just want to give you a little background on why we see these numbers. So if you remembered, like 3 years ago, I talked to you about a subset of the population called SLIFE students. These are students with limited informal education. These are our newcomer students. Well, there's another subset called experienced multilingual learners. We used to call them LTELs, long-term ELs. Like everything, the vernacular is changing to be more inclusive. So now they're called experienced multilingual. 5 or 6 years ago, without the support and the staffing, we have some students that are still stuck, right? This cognitive load of content, academic content, along with language learner is just too stressful for them. So this isn't a unique problem here in Lake Mills or even in Wisconsin. This is across the nation. So I feel really excited to have the goal setting moving forward of kind of turning this little issue around for this district. And I believe Erin is next.
So this team makes it really easy to do this part of my job because they are so good at what they do. So I had a really small role this year, which was to be the representative for the CISA 2 Immigrant Children and Youth Grant. And so what that entailed was some virtual meetings throughout the year, putting together resources that we can share with each other for those situations when you have students move in and you maybe don't have anyone who speaks the language, or they are considered a SLIFE student. What do you do? And because of our participation, we were awarded part of that grant. And so as part of it, we received one time kettle device, which is primarily going to be used at the high school. So if you think about, like, if you ever watch, like, I don't know, like World Sports or UN meetings, and you see people like with like the little headsets, what it's doing is translating. Like, you don't need someone in the back room whispering to you anymore. These devices, like, you put in the earbud and it takes in what is being spoken, and it, based on what you put in the device, it translates it automatically to you in your preferred language. So something that we're looking forward to trying out with newcomers at the high school level to start with, because they have such content-heavy courses. And then we also received 4 Pocket Talk devices. They are just handheld translators with 47 bajillion different languages. So which does help us when we have families coming from all over. While the majority of our population of ML families do speak Spanish, we have others that don't. And so we have 4 of these. One is staying in the district office so that when people come in, we can communicate with them, and we don't have to wait to try to get a hold of Jessica. We can try to get a hold of her while still at least conversing with them. Right now, sometimes it's just awkward silence. So, right, like trying to build community, trying to build a welcoming environment. Other ones will go to the elementary school and the middle school for our newcomers there. So they're able to have better conversations, both with peers and with teachers. And that was literally my role for them, beyond just supporting their needs. Again, I can't tell you enough how amazing they are, and I think the growth of our program is going to continue to show what an investment the board has made.
She's full of it. Like, she is a huge part of our team. I don't think I could do my job fully without her. All right, here's Julia Adame for you.
Hello. I am the bilingual paraprofessional for the school district. I do all the written translations, like Jessica previously mentioned. So anything the teachers send to me, I translate. I do some interpreting for parent-teacher conferences and some IEPs throughout the school year as well. I work with kids from kindergarten all the way up to high school. So it really tests out my Spanish skills, working with teaching them biology or photography class, and then working with kindergarten. And I use my Spanish skills to translanguage with the students. So when a newcomer comes and they don't know a lot of English, I use Spanish and then help add on the English, so they start to learn little by little, like naturally. So yeah, it's really awesome, and I love doing this. So it's fun working with all those kids. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia. She does have a degree in Spanish, so. All right, last thing I wanted to talk about are these ELD standards, and I do have to pull this up because I turned 50 this year, so I can't see that. So these standards were adopted by the DPI in 2021, and they have had a pretty significant implementation process put out there. We've been getting a ton of it from CISA 2. It's always been on our radar, and we're really moving forward with it per their regulations to have it out by 2025. So English language development standards aren't new to us ML teachers. So what this looked like in the past was that as an ML teacher, it was my responsibility to understand these standards and develop lessons and curriculum around them to teach my students. what the DPI, and this is nationwide, wants from us is that we now have this embedded with our regular content standards, which sounds incredibly arduous, and it will be, but it will be really good for students. So what this will look like for us and some things that we're already doing, we did develop a scope and sequence to show how we'll do this throughout the next 3 years. So all staff PD is one way. We had some at the middle and high school during in-service last year, and Megan's been doing things at the elementary. But through in-service and staff meetings, ML teachers will provide professional development on the implementation of the ELD standards, which would include background information and the components of the standards. And then the co-teaching alignment is within co-planning and co-teaching. ML teachers will co-create lesson plans that infuse the components of the ELD standards. So they'll work closely with teachers. We're working with the literacy coach at the middle school. Both Megan and her just attended a summit in Middleton around these ELD standards. Last summer, I attended a 2-day workshop at CISA 2 around them and how to align them with different units of study. So as we move forward, along with changing program to land a little bit more heavily at the high school and continuing to uplift the work that we're doing, we're going to be tasked with layering these on and asking teachers to help us with that work. That's all I have for you. We really appreciate you listening to us. Do you have any questions?
I just want to jump in as you were presenting. I mean, I could go on and on about this department because they have made probably some of the most significant changes, increases in student achievement. And as you're presenting this, thing that went through my mind is it's almost textbook of what the research says works. One is the collective teacher efficacy. And this group works together not only amongst themselves, but the teachers that they have been in the classrooms with, co-teaching, that have taken this on. We've also seen in those classrooms, they've made some of the highest growth in the district. And then I'd say the other biggest area is that the expectations that you've set for student learning. You have high expectations for all of our ML students, and they rise to that occasion. There's never any thought of like the student may have some language struggles, and so therefore we're just going to maybe accept a lower level of achievement. I've never seen that. And that, again, all ties into research is, you know, does my teacher think I can do it? And you've consistently done that. And then I think just the system of interventions you have in place, too. It's just, it's amazing to see what they are doing in the classrooms with kids. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate everything you guys do.
Thank you for that, Tanya. We always say that we can't do our job without all the other teachers. Like, you can be a classroom teacher and collaborate, and you can still be on an island. We can't. Our success and the success of these students really is dependent on all those other teachers, and of course, administration as well. But
I was just going to say that the slide of the little things make a difference. And I think not just, you know, for your students, but I think all of the students. I mean, we heard from the high school kiddos who came from the equity conference earlier, and I think that's exactly what they were speaking to, is understanding and learning everybody else's perspective to better make our own decisions and know about everyone else. So I just think that that's great. And I will also share in some of my senior portfolios this year, your names came up. So kudos to you, because that means the relationships you are building with them are instrumental. I also wondered always who was the mastermind behind all of the bilingual peach jars I was seeing, because as a teacher, that was a huge thing. Like, how can I get this translated? So thank you for all of that. Question about the, trying to really include all of those. So we've got a 10% Spanish, I'm hearing, but then for the other kiddos, how do we find ways to still communicate with them and make sure they're getting some of that information as well?
So we have a 4% identified multilingual learner programming, and then there's a 10% Hispanic population. So are you talking about the 10%?
So like the 10% would understand the things that she's translating, right? So within that 4%, would they need a different type of translation, or how might they understand some of the peach jar information that is coming out?
In terms of family, they all get it. They're under that same umbrella. So our families, the way that we do like our identifiers is that we have a list of who's identified as an ML and whether or not they need translation. And then we have a list of who's not ML, no longer is out of the program, never was in it, but still need translation. So every time a family comes to us, Becky and I work really closely at the district office. If they show up and are working on communicating with her, I get pinged. So her and I communicate, we determine sometimes the kids aren't ML, but their parents still need the communication. So one reason, there's lots of reasons for this, of course, equity is a huge one, but another one is students who have grown up in the country when their parents aren't born here tend to take on a lot of the load of translating for them, and we want to pull that off. So they, of course, still have to do it to those doctor's appointments, and don't get me started about attendance when a student needs to go translate for a parent at a doctor's appointment. But what we notice is that if those students are requiring to like communicate with their parents are missing vital information. So we're starting to build a program in that way so that all families that speak Spanish get the support that an ML family would. Did that answer your question?
I think. So then I guess, do all of those families, is what I'm hearing, need a Spanish translation, correct?
Yes. Yeah, so that's the family liaison piece. They're still under the radar, they're just not getting ML support in the classroom, but they're getting all of the other supports that come under that family liaison umbrella.
Yeah, I just didn't know if there were other languages that we had within that smaller percentage of our MLs that might need a different language translation.
We do, and Megan, do you want to speak to that? Because they're actually all at the elementary school.
So the other languages that are spoken at the elementary school, we have a Romanian family and we have a family from Albania as well. And as Jessica was saying, when the intake process happens, we ask families, how do you want communication? And at that time, they can choose to have communication in their, what we call their first language or in English. And those families have chosen to have communication in English. And if they would not choose to have communication in English, then it would be my job to help do the translating for that. And I am a good friend of Google. So Google and I are like this. So that's what we do for the peach jar. So all of that is put through that translation process. So the other languages that are spoken at the elementary school that are serviced through the multilingual department are Romanian, Albanian, Spanish. We have had Hmong, Hindi, and German as well. So, but right now I'm just servicing families of Romanian, Albanian, and Spanish.
Thank you.
Did that?
Yes, thanks.
And I'll just add to that, like our district newsletters, our district website, our school newsletters, when they go out via SMORE, parents can actually choose which language they would like it translated into. So not necessarily Peach Jar, but SMORE newsletters, parents can actually choose to translate that into a language of their choosing.
I want to say one more thing. That we all have goals, right? And one of my goals at the elementary school is to continue that process and having our students' first languages present throughout the elementary school. This year, the custodial staff at the elementary school helped me keep those Spanish and English signs hung. But next year, one of my goals is to have the other languages present and visible for all of our students throughout the elementary school. So that is a goal of mine. It's in there. I just got to find the time.
And of course, if there's ever a need, and this is just my experience from working in this, if we do have a language that does need translation, Hmong or Romanian, we would hire an external translator for all conferences. The way it works with privilege is oftentimes it's developing countries that need more support in this way. So oftentimes, like East Indian families, Romanian families, Albanian families, they're learning English, and it's not always readily available in countries like Mexico. You have to go to a really nice school to get English being taught. So that's why we see so heavily and lean so heavily towards the Spanish language. When you go into the LMASD website, there is a little translate button. You click on that, it'll translate the entire website. So I always introduce that to our families when they enroll, but additionally, anytime I meet with them, because they forget, I'm like, look, you can see everything that's going on, and you can click any language. So, yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Did you know that? You're surprised. She's like, no way.
I did not. Are there any other questions?
Just a quick question. In the translation device, I think that you said came through a grant, the little box. Would that be used in the high school, if I remember? Would that be for listening to a lecture kind of thing? Is that?
Absolutely, it could be. It could also go on a field trip.
Oh, okay.
You know, anytime where student is trying to take in information and that they don't understand. And it's going to translate it for them. We haven't played around with it yet, but Jefferson utilizes them, and they've seen some pretty great things. They had a student who came partway through, or this fall, who only spoke French. They don't even have a French teacher. Ellen Russell was kind enough to go down to translate to help out, but that they were able to get one for that student, so that student could learn, because they had no way of translating that day-to-day thing like we do for, like what Julia does, for example. They didn't have that for this student, so it can translate the content.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and we're really looking at that agency for students, so them being able to control their learning. If these pilots work with these devices, we would consider ordering more through our Title III funds. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. On to the next thing, which will be Ms. Jamie Everson and school nurses report. Oh.
Hi there, thank you for having us.
Yeah, good evening. I am Patty Keppel, was a school nurse at the elementary school this year, and this is Tony Zastro, the middle school and the high school. So we're here to go over the annual report for nursing services.
Yeah. It skipped one, but that's all right. So Patty and I both work 30 hours per week. Oh, there it is. 30 hours per week for a total of 60 hours per week. And then you can go to the next one. There you go.
All right. So Fort Healthcare has had a school nurse program since December of 1995, and they contract with 11 area school districts to provide nursing services. It's a team of 20 nurses with a combined total of experience of 144 years. And it's nice to have the resources from Fort Healthcare just to collaborate, share resources, mentor, and access many hospital and community resources. Dr. Jennifer Philbin serves as our medical director for the district.
You can go to, there you go. So this slide is just talking about the school nursing practice framework and what we do. If you think about the school nurse portion up there, that's like our head with our arms around everything, where we're trying to coordinate care, quality, be that liaison between the community and public health, families and school community, trying to have provide some leadership to make sure that our students are getting what they need. And of course, at the heart of the matter are our students.
And this just shows the Wisconsin statute. The state of Wisconsin provides legal guidance regarding the type of health service schools must provide.
Patty, can I bug you just to speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry, I'm hearing a little feedback, so I didn't know. Must provide to meet the health and safety needs of students and staff. The Wisconsin statute 121.02 requires school districts to provide emergency nursing services.
Next slide. So this slide is talking about the presentations we did this year. One of our goals this year was to increase our presentations, both with staff and students. And so Patty was able to do a glow germ hand washing program for 5K extra this year. We did individual students that were enrolled with the new dental program that was brought into school. We were able to do some dental education with them. And then we always have one-on-one visits with many of our students on personal hygiene. You know, middle school is particularly a big group of kids that we like to talk with. And then we have puberty education through human growth and development education for our 4th and 5th grade kids. Next slide.
All right, in addition to the educational opportunities for the students, we also provide staff training for safe medication administration, basic first aid, American Heart CPR, and also training for the medical emergency response teams. So this shows just a slide of some of the emergency medicine that we do the training for the EpiPens, Narcan, and the other auto injections and seizure medication.
So for staff training, this slide shows you what we've all done this past year. We did a face-to-face training for medication instruction for staff, and we doubled the amount of people that came to that training. I think it was 2 years ago we did the DPI medication training, and we only had like 52 people come to that. So this helped a lot. We have kids that go on school field trips all the time. They all have medications. You'll see the amount of medications that we administer during the day. So this was helpful to have that face-to-face meeting with most of our staff. And then the emergency meds and things like that were on there as well.
All right, so in conjunction with the training, we also provide health concern list for all the students that may have emergency medication, health concerns, and those are created for each building and provided to the medical emergency team and also administration to share to staff as needed. Based on parent provided information and as well as doctor's orders and medical, about 70% of the population of the school does have a chronic health concern.
So here is our medication list of what all happened through the course of the year. We gave, am I on the wrong one? Oh, we missed one again. We missed the health room visit one, maybe. Yep. Yeah, this is a big one. So the elementary school had over 3,000 health room visits. That means that many more kids were out of the classroom, not learning. They had a growth of 600 extra visits at the elementary school. The middle school, we made a couple changes. Since I've been here, traditionally 5th grade has the most amount of health room visits. And so working with the counselors, working with the 5th grade teachers, we made a couple changes on when the student should come to the health room. We use something called 3 Before Me, which is the student has to try 3 different things before they come to the health room, and that way they're still in the classroom. So at the middle school, the health room visits decreased by almost 50%, but there still is a lot of health room visits. And then high school went up just a little bit, and I think that's just the staff are documenting it more often, and we see staff as well for health problems, and we had 43 that we recorded for those visits. We had medical hold team. We have medical hold teams, which are people that are trained in emergency medication, CPR, first aid, and they came to 4 different medical hold calls, 3 at the high school, 1 at the middle school, and the elementary school didn't have any this year.
So this slide just gives the values of the different medications we gave. We gave over 4,545 doses of scheduled medications, so those were a daily medication that a student had at school. Medication safety and administration is an important part of the school nurse role, and we kind of oversee the administration and training the staff to be able to do that.
So these are just some of the meetings that we attend and some of the things that we do for our students that have health concerns. We have 26 kids that we've written health plans on because they have problems such as seizure disorder, diabetes, some other things as well. We attended IEP meetings and 504 meetings. We also have emergency action plans for students that maybe don't need a whole health plan, but staff need to know what to do if a student has a health problem in their classroom. And we do Medicaid billing too. That showed that we did 11 students we bill on, and hepatitis B vaccine, we haven't needed to do hepatitis B vaccines anymore because most people, as they're a child now, get hepatitis B vaccines. So, next slide.
All right, and this is our immunization audit. So listed on the slide are the numbers submitted on the 40th day of instruction. And we continue to monitor that throughout the school year. We've been at 100% compliance for the last several years. And what this means is that they've had the required vaccines, or they have a waiver, or they're in process of getting their vaccinations.
So part of the school nurse role is to do vision and hearing screens at grades 4K, 5K through grade 5. They have vision screens done, and 7th grade has a vision screen done. You can see how many referrals we had out of how many kids were screened, and unfortunately we don't get results back often. This shows that we had 16 new prescriptions, but there may have been more, and there may still be students out there that need some vision assistance, and we'll be rescreening the kids that failed this year that we didn't have information on. It's hard to learn if you can't see. So, and hearing screenings is done at the grade 5K and 1st grade level. So, next screen.
So this year was our first year coordinating the dental services for the families in the Lake Mills School District. So we partnered with Seals on Wheels through a grant. They provide services to the students. We sent out communication, and parents were able to sign a consent if they wanted their child to be involved. They perform a free exam, provide sealants, fluoride treatments, and cleanings. And then if they felt that they needed further treatment, then they would communicate that with the family.
So we do track communicable disease, and these are the numbers that we had this year. You can see COVID is still hanging in there, but it really hasn't been much of a problem. Strep throat has also been very high this year. We follow Department of Health and CDC guidelines on when a student needs to go home for certain illnesses. And we try to educate parents on those things. Next slide.
This shows the goals that we had for this year, and number 1 was increasing the classroom and student health related presentations, which we did I did glow germ with the hand washing for the kindergarten, and Tony, you did some education with food allergies to the staff at the middle school. Number 2, coordinating a dental health preventative sealant program, which we did with Seals on Wheels. And then also doing the large group training for medication at the beginning of the school year before the first day of school.
So our goals for this coming year are to increase participation in Seals on Wheels. We only have 18 students, and I think we had 20 maybe at first, and then 2 of them dropped out because they had a little fear of seeing somebody at school. But I think that it was a great program. The kids had 2 fluoride applications, and they had a cleaning, and they had sealants put on. We've had 3 kids that needed further dental assistance. Sometimes this is the only way students have dental care, is to go through a school program. So we want to increase that participation. Also increasing our staff food allergy education. We do have a program that we can have presented to staff. They can do a self-study on that just to give them more awareness of our food allergies. Kids really do well when they have rewards of food, and so we need to be mindful of our students that have those food allergies, that substitutions and changes in the classroom have to be made in order to accommodate their needs. And then implement a basic first aid education program for staff who provide supervision and in the cafeteria and at recess, just so those staff members feel confident in what they're doing for our students and know what to do in case of an emergency.
All right, just want to thank you for your continued support for the school nurse role in the district. Any questions? And then we do have a few pictures.
I had a question with this. It was a nice presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
For the scheduled times when a student receives some medication, is that for the most part done by staff, or do nurses get involved? Or
It's primarily done by the school nurse.
yeah,
Sometimes the health room and the office is a very busy place, so we work very well together with the secretaries, and they also take the training, so they assist with medication administration.
And I would say at the elementary school, it's a combination. I mean,
Under 18 and under could participate. Actually, could the older students also do it? I don't remember that. I think it was 18 was the cutoff, so.
My other question was if you tracked what the nurse room visits were for, and if maybe that's why you considered the recess cafeteria time to educate them a little bit more so they could cut back on some of those nurse room visits, or if you knew kind of how to target those for future if you were trying to decrease that time out of the classroom or wherever they were to come to you.
it was, I'd like to say maybe I drilled down with that, but it was kind of a staff request this past year to kind of get more education when they're in the health room or in the cafeteria, like if a student would choke, just kind of a reminder of, what to do or accidents. We do send out, all the recess supervisors have little packets with Band-Aids and ice packs and stuff like that, as well as those are sent to the classrooms as well.
I just wanted to thank you. I mean, when you look at what the nurses are responsible for, K-12, it's a lot of work on 2 people. And I want to also congratulate Patty on her retirement. She has decided to retire from nursing, and so Fort Healthcare will be actively looking for a replacement for her, but I just didn't want you to leave without saying thank you, and it's been nice working with you.
And thank you. I mean, it's been a pleasure. The staff is great. I will miss the students and the staff. It was a difficult decision, but just time for me.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you much. All right. Are there any community comment people? Okay, signed up. All right. Then consent agenda. Does anyone would like to break out any of these
Okay, I'll start by saying this month's consent agenda includes the approval of the following: May 20th, regular board meeting, June 3, special board meeting minutes, June 10th, school board strategic planning minutes, May treasurer's report and vouchers and invoices, the personnel report, volume 33.1 policies, and policy 7510, use of school facilities and grounds, and WIAA senior high school membership. Does any board member want to separate out any of these items? Okay, hearing none.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions? Discussion?
I had a question. It was very nice work done on the school facility priorities policy. Is there a way to make that information available on the website or anything?
All the policies are available on the website. I think where they're going to see changes is more with the administrative guideline, because that drills down into costs, and we've already begun that work as far as sending out letters to individuals who have reserved the facilities with the updated costs that will be associated with that, but we can definitely get that information up on the website and more visible. It'll be more in that facility portion of the website when you go into reserved facilities.
Sure. Yeah, I was thinking it'd be nice if people had a snapshot view of the priority.
Oh, correct, yeah.
Piece of it.
Okay.
Because I know the pricing can be,
Yeah.
depend on the situation. Anyways, okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, hearing none, I will ask for a roll call vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign? All right, it passes. Okay, now on to our action items. School website.
Okay, we've discussed changing vendors for our school website, and Megan and I went in and met again, specifically with Final Site, to ask more specific questions and see what they have to offer. It would be our recommendation to move from CMS for schools to Final Site. I think the costs are comparable among the two. There will be a fee, obviously, to flip over the old website to the new website. But again, when we examined just even the districts in Wisconsin that are using Final Site and just the ease of communication and I think the engagement level, we were even excited looking at other districts' websites because they were truly engaging. And I know, again, as we continue to try to enhance our communication, especially with the non-staff, non-parent population here in Lake Mills, we have to continually look for opportunities to be able to engage that population, and also new families moving into the area. That's one of the first places that new families will look, is on your district website. And if it doesn't look like you know what you're doing or that it's appealing, you potentially lose those families to open enrollment or other educational institutions.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was a slide that talked about a communication piece between teachers, parents, things like that. Would that potentially then replace what we use, just at the elementary school with Seesaw and some of those things, if it has that function?
Well, yes, and I know there was a couple of other add-on modules that you could choose at this point, and right now we said, let's just kind of stick with the basic.
Was that an add-on?
So that was one of the add-ons, just like the mass communication, we currently use Skylert. And we just thought, it's enough work to do the new website. Let's just kind of get that up and going, and then let's look at the other modules that go along with that. Yeah, I would like to move away from Seesaw communication to something that's, I guess, used a little more district-wide and something that we're a little bit more easily to retain.
A one-stop shop that makes
records.
it simplistic for families, yeah. The other thing I was going to ask, since I just learned that our website can be translated, this is an option with this one too?
Yes.
You read my note. All right. Any other questions? All right, do I have a motion?
I'll move the board approve the contract with Final Site as the website hosting provider. The contract includes the migration of content from our current platform to the new site.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any other questions? I know I had one, just to make sure that the new website, if we approve it today, will it be up and running for the start of the school year?
That's what they are telling us now, so we are going to do our best to get that up and going.
Okay. But if it's not up, then the old one will be?
The old one will stay up until we have the new one ready to
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Then I will ask a roll call vote on the motion.
Ken Eimers,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, it's moved and passed. All right, next, volleyball overnight field trip. It's standard. The high school volleyball varsity team is requesting it to stay overnight in the Dells in August due to a volleyball tournament at Just a Game, and it needs to go to board approval, so.
I'll move the board approve the overnight field trip for the varsity volleyball team to Wisconsin Dells scheduled for August 29th to August 31st. It is understood that the board will incur no cost and will accept no liability for any funds lost for any reason.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other questions? Okay. I have a question. Are there any other fall sports that are typically planning a trip?
Not that we know of right now. Otherwise,
Wait until August and
we do
September.
try to lump them together as much as possible. We do try to put out, emails, and then some coaches are a little bit more aware of that than others. And sometimes things come up at the last minute, but yes.
All right. Any other questions? Then I'll ask for a roll call vote on the motion.
Brianna Beslick,
Aye.
Ken Eimers,
Aye.
Kirk Lund,
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right, now we are to the gifts.
Yeah, I'll move the board thank the generous donors for their ongoing support of the students and programs of the Lake Mills School District. Donations received include the Critter Club book series valued at $108 to the elementary school library from the Bablich family, a $150 donation to the mill from the Lake Mills United Methodist Church, a $500 donation for the varsity softball team's coach bus travel to the state tournament from each of the following banks: Bank of Lake Mills, Farmers and Merchants State Bank, Greenwood State Bank. A donation of 5 acres of farmland valued at $1,000 from Roger and Beth Wiedenfeld to provide educational opportunities for the Lake Mills FFA students and program. 400 state softball rally towels valued at $1,148 donated to the high school athletic department from EZ Promotion and Apparel. The following sponsors for the Mills sponsorship program include gold sponsors: Jefferson County Community Purse, $1,563.20. Walter Construction, $1,200. The Bank of Lake Mills, $1,000. Farmers and Merchants State Bank, $1,000. Greenwood State Bank, $1,000. Culvers of Lake Mills, $1,000. The Rotary Club of Lake Mills, $1,000. Silver sponsors include Citizen Advocates for Public Education, $750. Quick Trip, $500. The Family of Pearl Shunke, $500. And the Tyrania Ladies Club, $500. And bronze sponsors include HEPS Quality Restoration, LLC, $250. TT's Timeout, $250. Tyrania Veterinary Clinic, $250.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Again, we have such wonderful community supporting the school district. I'm shocked every month, so. All right, then I will ask for a roll call vote, a roll call vote on the motion.
Kirkland.
Aye.
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Eimers.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. All right. Future agenda items. Action items will include the academic standards, handbook revisions, July 1 equalized aid estimate, and school report, summer school report.
Probably one of the biggest things we found out in our statewide legal call this past Wednesday was the new Title I regulations are out, and one of the regulations that came out said that school districts have to adopt a new Title IX policy by August 1st. So all the school districts in the state are kind of in a scramble since everybody requires 2 readings of board policy. However, we were advised legally that there is an emergency clause in our bylaws that allows in cases like this to approve a policy with 1 reading. So it's an extensive policy. I was telling Amy it's about 33 pages of it'll be condensed down from that, but just a lot of legal considerations. And so they're advising that school boards work directly with legal counsel on that. So I know we have a policy committee, and I'm just wondering, do you want to be part of that meeting with the attorney to go through the Title IX policy, or do you want me just to handle that here in the next 2 or 3 weeks?
I would say, as being on the policy committee, it seems as though this is something that has to be done. There isn't a lot of wiggle room, and so I would think that between you and the attorney, you are covering all the bases that need to be, covered and doing what needs to be done. And then we'll just make sure that we have all eyes on it for the next meeting when it's approved, it sounds like.
Yes, so I'll be bringing that for the July board meeting. There will be a new policy update coming out after that, but that'll be coming probably right before school gets out. Okay. But okay, I just wanted to make sure you were all aware of that.
Then also another thing to add for July 15th is, depending on our discussion, how it goes at our next committee meeting, a potential referendum question.
Correct.
And another addition, I have the CISA 2 meeting tomorrow night, so I can just give a quick update on that next time.
Okay. All right, then I will take a motion for entering executive session.
I'll move the board adjourn to executive session according to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parentheses 1, parentheses C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically administrator pay raises, middle manager pay raises, and the district administrator's evaluation.
Okay.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Roll call vote on that?
Brianna Beslick.
Aye.
Ken Eimers.
Aye.
Kirkland.
Aye.
Amy Litcher.
Aye. We are now in executive session.